And I'm just thinking about this problem and these questions, and an idea comes to me. So when I had this bad day where I couldn't remember my name and I was so frazzled in my head, I thought it would be important to write down what my challenges are so I can keep track of them. Never thought I'd ever have that situation where I'm going to write down my thoughts so I can keep track of them. So I grabbed a journal and I wrote down the challenges that I was facing, because if I forgot one of them, it was just going to make things worse. So I got a journal and I wrote down, a description of the challenge. And then I'd turn a page and I'd write down a challenge. I'd turn a page, write down a challenge. That way I could remember them, hopefully to relieve my mind so I can remember what my name was, hopefully to reduce my stress and my anxiety that was happening if I just wrote these things down. So when I was writing down the challenge, I also had some questions that I didn't have answers to. So I wrote down some questions underneath the challenges, like, what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to figure this out? And it was just questions like, literally, I really need to find these answers, but I had no idea where to find those answers. So in my journal, I had the challenge and I had some questions. Not on all of them, but most of them, I had at least one or two questions. So it took a while. And at this point, business was really slow. So I had a lot of time on my hand. Not good in that aspect. And so I wrote all this out, and come to find out, I was like, whoa, this actually did cause some relief, because now I wasn't trying to remember everything, right? So I wrote down what my challenges were, and I wrote down a couple questions that I wish that I could find answers to. Well, so the day goes on, it gets to the evening, and of course I go to bed, and go to sleep. And crazy thing was, I woke up at 3:30 a.m. Like I just popped open, boink, wide awake. And I'm like, why am I awake at 3:30? Because up until that point, I had been like trying to sleep in. It was like an avoidance process. Like I was just trying to avoid getting into the next day, because it just meant trying to figure out problems I didn't know what to do. And then also I'm like awake at 3:30. What? This is weird. So since I'm up, go to the bathroom, come back to bed, I'm like, I'm not getting up. It's 3:30 in the morning. I can still sleep for 5 hours, and so I go back to sleep. Next day, I go to bed that night. I wake up the next morning at 3:30 a.m. Okay, that's weird. I don't just wake up at 3:30, and I don't have an alarm set, and there's no noises outside, and I wake up at 3:30. Weird. So I go to bed that night. Third day in a row, I woke up the next morning at 3:30. Now, I was laying there on the third morning. I'm just laying there wide awake at 3:30. And I'm wondering what's going on. And I'm like, why am I awake? What's happening? And this little thought zooms through my head that there's a story in the Bible about, you probably know, but I forgot. There's a story about somebody in the Bible who got woke up by God. Like God woke him up and said, hey, you need to wake up. I got to talk to you. And that little story went through my head. It's like, I don't remember stuff from the Bible. I have to go look it up every time. I don't memorize well. It doesn't stick very well in my head. So for that story to go through my head, that there was somebody in the Bible that God had to wake up to talk to him, I'm like, what? Is God trying to wake me up? So I got up. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to wake Kim up. So I went in the living room, turned on a little light, sat on what's that rock that's right in front of a fireplace? Not the mantle, but the other spot. So I sat in front of the fireplace. It was a gas electric fireplace. So you could just flip a switch. So I flipped the switch, boom, the little fire starts, and just sat next to fire, just like warming myself up, cooking my bones, just warming up. And I'm sitting there, and I had grabbed my journal. I brought it in, sat on the couch, and I'm sitting in front of the fireplace, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, why am I awake? This is weird. Like, I'm wide awake. And I thought, man, I could do the dishes. I don't want to do the dishes at 3:30 in the morning. I'll wake Kim up. Should I do the laundry? Should I go clean my office? And all those thoughts were going through my head, but nah, didn't want to do any of that at 3:30 in the morning. Then it's 3:35, it's 3:40, it's 3:45. And I look over at my journal, and I grab my journal and I open it up. I'm just kind of thumbing through some of my journal entries, and I get to the section where I wrote down all my challenges. And I'm standing there, this is like 3:45, 3:50. And I look at one of the first challenges, and I'm reading over the challenge that I'm faced with. And I'm reading the questions that I posed at the bottom of that description of that problem, that challenge. And I'm sitting there holding the journal. My backside is getting cooked. It's getting hot, but it feels really good. You know what I'm talking about if you've ever had a fire, right? So I'm sitting there looking at this, and I'm pondering on this challenge. I'm not like I tried to. I was just, what else am I supposed to be doing while I'm sitting here out by the fire at 3:50, 3:55 in the morning? And I'm pondering or thinking about the questions that I wrote. And I was wishing I knew the answer. I was wondering, I was pondering, and I was wishing that I knew the answers. And I literally was just sitting there going, what am I supposed to do about this challenge? Like, I don't know how to solve this problem. I wonder what I should do. And now it's like 3:55 a.m. I'm sitting by the fire. I've got my journal. My tummy starts to grumble a little bit, like, hey, let's have cereal. It's like, oh, we could go get some cereal real quick. But I'm sitting there, and I'm just thinking about this problem and these questions. And an idea comes to me. An idea. What? Like, an idea I've never thought about. So I reach over, and I had a pen sitting next to the couch. So I grabbed the pen, and I start writing down this idea. Now, to me, it was just an idea like, oh man, maybe I'm just delirious, right? Maybe I'm just a little loopy at 3:55 in the morning. But I'm like, no, I'm pretty wide awake. And this idea comes to me. So I write down this idea. And as I'm writing down the idea opens up a little bit more. It's like, whoa, wait a second. Like, the idea was just the beginning of this, of like what to do. So as I'm writing the idea down, because I started writing the idea down, I got about 2/3 the way through, and it's like the idea just went, whoa. It just like opened up, and there was more information, more insight to that particular idea. Like, it was continuing. So my first sentence of writing down the idea turned into 3 more sentences. I'm like, wait a minute, I've been wrestling with this problem for, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's like, it just was seeming like this is never going to get solved. I cannot figure this out. And so the first sentence came out, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. And I had this little moment where I'm probably going to cry, because I cried in the moment, because I'm sitting there just writing these answers. It's like, you got to be kidding. I'm awake at 4:00 in the morning after sitting here for half an hour, and I'm getting an idea that actually seems like it could work. And I got emotional sitting there in front of the fireplace, and I was like, what in the world? And I'm writing down this thought, and there's a couple other little pieces that came to me, and I wrote those down. And then it's like the idea then finished. Like it was just like, I don't know how to explain it. It just kind of like, it's kind of like you open a window and the breeze comes in, and then you shut the window and then there is no more breeze. So it's kind of like, that's how the idea happened. It's like there was a window that got opened and this idea was flowing through the window, and then somebody closed the window and so it's not really an that's what a car makes. You know what I'm talking about. It just like someone closes the window and the breeze is finished. It's still out there, but that was enough for me. And I sat there holding my pen and my journal, and now my backside's like burning hot, which I think that kind of feels cool. I grew up that way as a kid, always going down to the fireplace in the morning, and it just felt good. And I'm just sitting there just in awe of what just happened. And there's no more breeze or no more idea flowing to me. And it's like, that was it. And I just kept pondering on what came to me after I had pondered on the challenge and pondered on the questions. And here's this idea between 3:30 and 4:00 in the morning. So I closed my journal and put on the couch. I'm sure I went and grabbed a bowl of cereal because I'm sure I was hungry. And so I pondering on this whole thing of like, what in the world? And then I got super tired. So I went back to bed. I went back to bed and slept for a couple more hours. Then I woke up and I just could not wait to go back to my journal and open it up and see what's inside. And I open up my journal and I'm seeing the notes. And it's like, you're kidding. You are kidding. Like this little bit of hope, like this little fireworks show inside of me was like, what? There are answers, there's solutions to this. Like, and I just was just in awe. I was excited about this answer. But then I paused for a moment. I went, wait a minute, how did this just happen? I'd been praying and asking God, help me, help me, help me, help me. And I didn't feel like I didn't recognize, and I'm sure there probably was, I just didn't see it. I don't know. It didn't happen as the way it happened from 3:30 to 4:00 in the morning. And so I was in awe about this. And I was like, wait a minute. Oh, shoot, I just forgot his name. Oh, it'll come to me. There was a guy I was watching on TV one time. I see his face. His name will come to me here shortly. And I was watching him on TV on a Saturday morning thing, and the TV was on, and I saw this guy on TV, and he literally said, and I remembered this after I had this journaling experience. He says, yeah, if you ever get woken up early in the morning, get up. God's trying to talk to you. So it's like, wait a minute, did I just have one of those moments? Is this what was being talked about in the Bible? Is this what he was talking about? And I was like, did this just happen? Did I just get up early and like get some clarity early in the morning? Now, something that was very fascinating is I'm starting to process, like, how did this happen? How could I do this again? Like, hey, is this just a one-time thing, or could I like cause this to happen? So I'm processing like how this all happened. And I realized that it was really quiet. Like there was no noises in the house. The neighborhood was quiet, super, super quiet at 3:30 in the morning. Now, maybe you live next to a train station, maybe you live next to the freeway, but you'll notice at 3:30, there tends to be less noise, less hustle and bustle, less chaos going on around you at 3:30 in the morning. Now, I can't say that for everywhere because you probably might live in a place where it's like, Kirk, it's always noisy here. Okay, so but for the rest of the people, that tends to be a very quiet time at that time of the day. So I was noticing it was quiet. I was noticing that everybody in the house was asleep. It was just me left alone to my own thoughts. I was noticing that I had a journal. I'm noticing that I was pondering. I was wondering, pondering, and wishing that I had the answer. I noticed that I had to write the first idea down for the rest of the idea to open up, which I could have just sat there. I could have just sat there and went, oh, wow, that's a good idea, and not captured it and began to explore it. Because when I wrote it down, then there's all this other information that came along with it, right? So it's like, whoa, there's an aspect to this. So I got to tell you, that was the first time in a long time I woke up after my nap from 4 to 6:30. That was my nap for the day. After, when I woke up at 6:30, I was like, I was excited to wake up. Like, there are answers. There are answers to questions.